In this tutorial, I want to show you how to annotate your presentation drawings. So you should have downloaded the HWC annotation drawing file, and it should be in your folder along with all of your drawing files. So the next thing to do here is to double check and make sure that you know the scales of these views. So in this view, if I just click on the viewport like this, I select it, I know that that is 330 seconds. When I go to my floor plan view and I click on the viewport, that is 3/16. So now I'm going to switch over to model space like this. And you'll see that the scale here is still set to scale of 1 to 1. But I'm going to change that, and I'm going to start by setting the scale to match my site plan. I have two different scales here, and I'm doing this on purpose because it's not uncommon to have that in an architectural drawing. So I'm going to click here and set the scale to 330 seconds. And it doesn't affect anything yet because I don't have any annotative features in here. So what I need to do now is load my drawing file, the HWC annotations. And just as a reminder to myself, I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm going to make sure I'm on layer 0. It doesn't matter as much now, but it's always a good idea just to start on layer 0. And then I'm going to go to the Insert tab, insert block panel, insert drop down, and I'm going to click on blocks from libraries. And I'm going to look for my library, which is my drive. So going to blocks here, clicking on the drive and looking for it. And it takes me straight there because I've been using this already. And I'm looking for that HWC annotation drawing. And I did download, and it's sitting right here in the middle of all the other files. And I'm going to click open. And I'm going to hover back over my blocks just so that it loads. And you can see that it has the annotation. It also has, separate from that, there is this annotative block in there. But all I want to do is click and drag the drawing in because it contains everything I need. And my scale is set to 330 seconds. And I'm also double checking that I do have my icons turned out where it says add scales to the objects when the scale changes, and then show the objects. So I'm just going to click and drag and just drop right here and release. So it's bringing in the text to match the scale of the view. Well, it's actually matching the annotative scale, but I have this annotative scale set to match the viewport. So let me do this. I'll show you. I'm going to move all of this over here for now. And then I'm going to come over to site plan. And notice how it's not showing me that information. And what I need to do is come over here and click on this icon where it says show annotation objects at the current scale. So I click on that, and there are my objects. Now, as I look at it, they are appearing to be a little small, and this is just based on experience. So while it did bring them in, I don't know if it's added the scales. So one thing that I like to do is I like to double click inside of the view and then trigger a change. So I'm going to temporarily unlock this, and I'm going to switch it from 330 seconds. Since I'm going to need 3/16 anyway, I'm just going to jump to that. That's all. So when I set it to 3/16, notice you see how the text changed, and that's good. Now I'm going to go back and set it to 330 seconds. And when I do that, notice now how the text did get bigger. This is a really quick way of doing that, setting it to match the scale. And then I'm going to lock this back down. If I hadn't done that, I could have gone into my model space over here, and I could have selected the text or the block and see if I could change it there. But I'm realizing that it is still a block, and maybe that's why it didn't change, and that's okay. I'm just going to move it again as a block over here out of the way. And then I'm going to explode it. So I'm going to type in X and enter and select the block and enter. So now it has adjusted. So maybe I should have exploded, but it doesn't matter. One way or another, you'll be setting that scale to match what you have in paper space. All right, so that's all set, and that's what I wanted. So I want my title on my drawing. I want this to be site plan. And if I take the title, I'm just going to copy for now. Copy it. I always like to make copies just so I can keep the original off to the side somewhere. And the title usually goes somewhere in the lower left corner. So if I place it here and tap the escape key, that's a good location for it because this is my property. However, it's still sitting in the middle of the drawing, and that's not good. So there's a couple of options here, and what you can do is you could always go back to the site plan view, and I could double click outside so I'm in paper space. I can take this viewport, select it, and I can clip it like this, or I can clip it even more so it just focuses on the property. And if I wanted to, I could actually put the title here in paper space. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'll go back to my blocks. I can take that title and scale, and I can click, drag, and drop it right in here. I just need to give it a second because my system tends to lock up a little bit here and there. So let it think for a moment. All right, so the block is in, and then this pops up. So it wants me to give the view title a name and also set the scale. So I'm going to skip that for now and just click OK because I wanted to show you that I can bring in that title into Paperspace. I hesitate to do it this way because if I move the view is independent of the title. It's just a personal preference, but I wanted to show you your options. So I'm going to take that and delete it. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this all in model space. So I'm going to make this viewport much bigger to see what the extent of my view can be on the sheet. Oh, and by the way, I think my border might be a little too thick. I might be changing that later. Um, and this is just me observing the drawing, always thinking about presentation. So I do want to keep my title somewhere in this location. So what I'm going to do is go back to model space. And then I'm going to select my XREF. Now I'm going to come up here to create a clipping boundary. So X clip it. And then I'm prompted, and I do want to go with a rectangular um, crop. And then it says go ahead and specify the first corner. And I do this loosely. And my O snaps are off since the last time I was in my drawing session. And I'm just going to clip it right here for now. And from here, I can go ahead and adjust. So if I wanted to, I can bring this in a little bit closer like this, and then maybe expand it on this side a little bit more like that. So it's picking up the two lines there for the alleyway. Um, Maybe I want to bring it up a little bit. So this is me just making some adjustments. And when I do that, now I've clipped it here and I can move my title. So I'm going to type M, enter. I selected enter. I'm just going to move it down like this. And again, as long as it's close to that lower left-hand corner. And now when I view this in my layout, there's the title and it kind of looks like it is in paper space, even though everything is in model space. And if I wanted to, I can change the size of this viewport now that I have everything set the way I want it to. And I can't tell if the two lines are coming in, but it looks like they are. And what I could do is zoom in a little bit closer. There's the line. Okay, good. And at this point, I can also bring this in a little bit more like this. And it does look centered, so I'll leave it as is. Otherwise, I can move it. But that's how I would do it. And that's how you drop in the title. Now, the north arrow, since we don't have an actual site, as long as you have the north arrow visible, you'll be okay. And if you want to rotate it, change the symbol from north arrow 2 to north arrow 1, that's entirely up to you. Also with the line, I've seen some instances where the line gets taken all the way to the extent of the drawing. In our case, I'm going to take it to the extent of the property there. You can do that, but I prefer to keep it close. So I'm going to leave it right there. And then I'll tap the escape key. This is not the plan view. This is my site plan, and we don't refer to them as a view. We just refer to this as site plan. So I'm going to double click, and then it brings up the attribute editor, and I'm going to change this to site plan, keeping it all caps. And then I'll click here where it says scale, and I'm going to change that scale to 3/32 and click OK. All right. I'm going to try something, and I just want to see. It used to be, and it might still be, that I can hold down the control key and double click on the text. Yes. So hold down control key, double click the text, and you can edit the text here instead of going through that attribute dialog box. So just keep that in mind. Okay. I don't need to see this text here, so I'm going to move it back. Just pick everything and take it over here to the side like this. What I do want though is the title. And I have a couple of different types of text. Let me just move this up a little bit here. That's single line. This is multi-line in case I want to do multi. Um, and then I'll move all of this up along with this text like this. And then I'll move everything up, including that text and that one up like this, just to separate it out. So use any of these that you want. When it comes time to put dimensions on a site plan, we don't dimension them with architectural dimension lines. We just put in text. And this is how we do it, and this is how civil engineers do it. So I really just want to use my single line text. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to type CP for copy. I want to copy it from here over here, just to place it in that location. And then I want to place the other text here and then tap the escape key. So now I want to put in the length of the property. So I'm going to do a distance check. I type DI, enter from this endpoint. And I'm realizing now I have my O snaps turned off. So let me turn them on. So from this endpoint to that endpoint, it's 125 feet. So I'm going to double click in here. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to type in 125.00 feet. This is how it's shown. Feet and inches, they're shown in decimal. So that's how we do it. Enter, and then enter again to terminate the command. And I'm going to take the text, and just because I want to show you this, I'm going to go to the properties, and I'm going to set that justification instead of left. I'm going to set it to bottom center. You don't have to. I'm just doing this to show you. And then I'll select that grip point, and I'm going to find the midpoint of my property line, which is right there. And then I tap the escape key. And that's more or less where I would like to have it. But since I have the building in the way, I'm going to move it over, and I'm also going to move it up a little bit. But at least that's my starting point. So I'm going to type M, enter, select my text, enter, and then just move it right over here. And that's all set. And then the length or the width of my property, I'm going to do a distance check from this endpoint to that one. I've got 50 feet. I don't even need to click on it. I'll tap the escape key. So I'll take this text, and I'm also going to edit the properties here. And I know I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to set that to 90 here, enter. I also want that to be aligned to the top or the bottom center. So that's my rotation. I'm looking at my justification. Let's see, bottom center, sure. And then just wanted to check the contents. All right, that's fine. And then what I'd like to do is just double click on the text, straightens it out for me, and I'm going to put in 50.00 feet and enter. All right, same thing here. I just want to see where it would be. if I placed it at the midpoint of my property line. So that's where it would go. Now, it's in the way of the trees. I don't want to get rid of the trees. I want to show them. So it's okay sometimes. If you'd like to, you can move it and you can place it in the middle because it's easier to read. Or you can place it here and you should be able to read that also. So either one is fine, but we do our best to try and place the dimension outside of the property. So I'm going to place it here for now, and I think it's legible. And then the last thing I want to do is just call out that this is an alley. So I'm going to take this text over here. I'm going to type CP, enter, and select and enter. And I'm going to copy it. It's okay if it picks the midpoint there or the perpendicular point and bring it all the way over here. Now, you notice that there's some text floating around. That's that ghosted text. I'm about to fix that in just a moment. I'm going to hold down the shift key instead of using ortho because I want to line it up right here in the middle of that alleyway and click, tap the escape key, and then double click on the text. I want to change that, and this will be alley, enter. And I also want to call out the street over here. I don't know if I'm going to see it, but let's give it a try. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say CP, enter. I'll copy this text, enter, right over here. Tap the escape key and then double click. Call this anything you want. Main Street, a street near your house. I'm just going to call this one Lake since our college is on Lake Street. So I'm just going to do that. I'll Lake ST, put a period and enter. But again, any fictitious name you want is going to be fine. So that's my site. And those ghosted images, right? I'm going to pick this text right here. It has some, that ghosted image. I don't know if this does also. Looks like it does. And this one and this one. And I might as well pick the text as well. All right, and then I'll go to the properties and it shows me here that I have selected 5 objects. It's got the layer, but it looks like I cannot edit them all at once. So for my drop down, I'll just go to my text only. And when I pick just the text, now I can set that annotative scale so that it removes the other scales that I don't need. So I'm going to delete that one and the other 3. So it's just 3/32. Click OK. Switch this over to my block reference. Change that annotative scale also so that it looks like it only has 3/32. So I'll click OK to that. And then I'll tap the escape key. And now I shouldn't have any ghosted images. So that's good. I'm all set there. I go to my site plan view and it does bring in the text. And if I wanted to, I can zoom in real close here, double click inside the viewport, select my text, and maybe just bring it over here, real close to the edge of that viewport. But trying to move it away so it's a little bit more legible. And then I'll tap the escape key a couple times, double click outside, zoom, extends, and I'm all set. That's all the information you need. Now, I'm still missing the walkway leading up to my site, but again, this is in progress. I can always add that later. I don't want to walk through my grass over here if that's what I have. So I should be showing a pathway there. And if you did add a pergola, a small pavilion, outside shelter, whatever that may be, just show the footprint of it here. It doesn't have to be the entire building. And that would be in the site or the X site drawing, and then it would update when you bring it in here. So that is all set there. And now I'm going to go to my floor plan view. My floor plan view, if I click on the viewport, this is set to 3/16. So I'm going to tap the escape key, come over here to model space, pan over. And what I'd like to do is just have you place a couple of dimensions, some overall dimensions. You don't need to put too much. It's an intro to dimensioning. So to do that, the style is already here. So I'm going to zoom in. And then to place the dimensions, go to the Home tab, And when you brought in that HWC annotations drawing, it also brought in a layer called annotations. So make that your current layer and then go to annotate. And from annotate, drop in a linear dimension. So annotate tab, dimensions panel, linear. Click on linear and then go ahead and click on the building. And let's see, I'll click here because I want to get the overall length of my building. I would pick down here and put the dimension, which I could, and I do have room for it, but my title is going to be there. But I'll tell you what, for the sake of learning here, I'll go ahead and do that since that is the longest of the walls there. So I'll click here and then I'll click over here at my second endpoint or line origin. And then I'm just going to move that down and place it right here. And you'll notice it's still showing up at 3:30 seconds. And I don't want that. I want this to be at 3/16. Now, if I leave all of these icons on, you see what this one is showing? It says add scale to annotative objects when the annotative scale changes. Well, if I leave that on, it's going to affect these annotations over here. So okay, I have to be real careful. I'm going to turn that off and I'm going to delete this because this is going to be easier. And then I'm going to change my scale to 3/16. And when I do that, let's see, did this change? Should not have. Nope, doesn't have any ghosting on it, and that's good. So now I come over here and I'll place the dimension again, linear from this endpoint to this endpoint. And it looks like it's still doing that, and that's all right. This is typical of AutoCAD. I'll just pick the dimension, and I guess I was trying to avoid having it change. But that's all right. I'll go to my properties, and I'm going to look and see if I have an annotative scale here. And there's a lot of information because I showed you previously how there's a lot of variables in here. And I'm really just looking for the general information. Annotative, it says no, and this is interesting. Oh, I know what my problem is. Here's what I did wrong. And I'm glad I'm doing this with all of you, and this is common. So I want to use this dimension style. And this style here, if I hover over it, it says that, well, it doesn't tell me, but if I click on it now, I come over here, and this is my annotation dimension style. There it is, dim style HWC. So if I tap the escape key, I come up here. The current style that I have is the standard one. I need to change that. So I click on that and I'm going to click on HWC. So now it should work out. So I'll zoom back over here. Try this again. And by the way, I knew that because again, based on having done drawings in the past, I can start to tell when the text is too big or too small. So visual annotations or visually recognizing those annotations is helpful, but it takes a little bit of practice. So now I'm going to go ahead and place my linear dimension, and it says first extension line origin, and that's going to be this point here. Second um, line or second extension line origin is here. Click, and then right, and I'll just click right here. So notice that's 40 feet. Now, if your floor plan is off by a few inches or fraction of inches, this will show up and it will give you that actual dimension. So double check and make sure you're being accurate. So that's one dimension. The other dimension is going to be the width of the house here. So I'm going to go linear again. I'm going to click on this endpoint, and then I'm going to take it up to this endpoint and just bring it out like this and click. And that tells me it's 28 feet wide. So those are the overalls. But I also want to show you how to put dimension strings in. So let me show that to you up here at the top. And what I basically want to do is just dimension like how long is my outer deck here, including the steps, and then where does my building start? Where does the building end? Maybe I also, well, no, I guess I could put that dimension. That would be a little bit different. But let me just show you quickly the how I would do a dimension string. So I'm going to go linear. And you'll see how it's asking for the first extension line origin. I'm going to make sure that this is the first, And then this is going to be the second. And then I click right here. And then right after that, I'm going to click on the continue option. So continue will now pick up, and that last or that second point that I picked now becomes the first. And then I can just click right over here like that and then tap the escape key. So that's how I can get that dimension. And then if I wanted to, it's okay. If I go back to linear here to do an overall dimension from this endpoint to that endpoint. And I want to make sure it's the endpoint, not perpendicular. So I'm going to use my tab key until it finds the endpoint. And then I click and I'll take it up. So overall, 52 feet, 40 feet here. So I'm getting some really good dimensions. Now, I'll put the dimensions, I'll do another continuous dimension line here. And by the way, these are dimension strings because we are stringing them together. So the dimension here, I'll go linear and I'll start at this endpoint. And I'll go to that endpoint and I'll place it here. Now, typically we like to put it outside of the building, which it is. And this, you could technically place it away from the stairs. But because our focus is on the building more so than the stairs, it's okay to put the dimension here. And then I'll click on continue, picks up where the last one left off, click here, and then I'll just tap the escape key. And what I want you to see here are the fact that there's a distance here between the building, the object, and the dimension line. We always want that break. But if you can also see right here in that corner, there's a dot. And that dot is needed for AutoCAD, and that is what's referred to as a definition point. AutoCAD is calculating the distance between the two definition points and placing that distance here as our dimension. So just keep that in mind, which means that if I wanted to, let's say this 16-foot here, I'm going to click on that dimension, and I don't want to dimension the stairs. I just want to dimension up to the edge of the deck. I can select that dimension. The grips turn on, and I have grips at the definition points. I also have I also have grips right where my extension line and my dimension line meet. But I'll start here. I'll pick that grip point at the definition point, click on it, bring it in here, and now the dimension updates. And I'll tap the escape key, and then I'll take this one also, and I'll line it up right here. And then if I wanted to, I can select this dimension string and pick this grip point, and I can move the dimension up or down. It moves independent, which means that if I click here, I now have to go to the other dimension. First of all, tap the escape key, select this one, and then move that up to align to match with that intersection, or perpendicular to that is fine. If I wanted to, I could use a crossing window like this, and I can move both of them at the same time. Okay. And then the other thing I want to mention is the text. Sometimes the text is in the way, especially when you're dimensioning your walls. You just need to move the text out of the way. So here, for example, if I do a linear dimension and I want to do dimensions all the way through my building, let's say I start here, go to that endpoint, that gives me the thickness. I'll drop the dimension line right here. I'll click on continue, and I'm just going to go across here, and then I can pick the midpoint. That's fine. And then if I keep going, I'll just try to find midpoints, endpoints. It doesn't matter because I'm on the wall. So I'll just stop there for a moment, and you can see what's going to happen. And by the way, this 8 foot 0.5 inch, that means something is off in the drawing, but it's not going to matter now. You're learning how to draw. You're learning how to place dimensions. The accuracy comes with the experience. The more time you spend drawing, the more accurate the drawing gets, and that's fine. So over here, for example, this 8 inch, if it's a little too tight in there, I can always select the dimension and then click on the grip that is for the text. Click on it and just move it out here. And I'm going to hold down my shift key so it stays aligned to the other text. So I can do that. 5 inches here. Let me tap the escape key. This is a little bit tight, so I'm going to click on the 5 inches and I'm going to move it either to the left or to the right, whatever is best. And holding down the shift key instead of using ortho, give that a click, tap the escape key, come over here, select this dimension, and then click on the text grip. If I move it here, it's in the way of the sync, so I'm going to go to the other side, holding down shift to keep it straight, and click. The downside here is that when I do that, if I move the dimension string, so if I pick it here and I move this up, you'll see how the text does not move with it. Whereas here, because I never touched that text, that one will. So that's a little bit of an issue, but all you have to do, and let's say we moved all the dimension strings up, all I have to do is click on that dimension, click here, or just hover for a moment, no clicking, and then come over here to my options and say reset text position. And it puts it right back at the origin where it should have been in the first place before I moved it. And now if I do bring it back down and let it line up, now it moves with the dimension line. So be mindful of that. Um, and I think that's all I wanted to show here. So just simply putting the dimensions or some simple dimensions is going to be enough. Now, if you were interested, you could dimension the rooms. Or I'm sorry, not dimension, label the rooms. But we have furniture, and the furniture helps us identify the type of room. So we know this is a bedroom just by looking at what's inside of it. We know this is a kitchen and everything else, the bathroom. So there's no need for it. But sometimes if you have to, you're more than welcome to add the text. I'm going to say no. I'm going to let the drawing speak for itself. And you don't need to put this dimension string in there. So I'm just going to select that and just start deleting those dimensions here like this, because you don't need to do that. It's just showing that to you as an example. Okay, that should do it. And then I need my title. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to copy again, because I just like to keep a an original version there. I'm going to move it over here. I see that it still has the ghosting image, so it has multiple annotative scales. I'm going to select it, go to my properties, change that scale, or rather revise it so it doesn't have the others. Click OK. And that's the correct scale. And I'm going to move it and line it up. So here I will turn on my object tracking. I have OSNAP running. And since it's already highlighted or selected, I'm going to type M, enter, pick this endpoint, and I'm going to track this endpoint and bring it straight down so it lines up somewhere there to that. I'm going to change the arrow, make sure it matches the site plan. So I should check the site plan. Did I leave it north up? I did, but I also want to match the arrow type. So zoom in here and then just change that arrow type. And then tap the escape key. If you want, either double click the text, it opens up this window, edit the text here, or hold down the control key and double click the text, and then you can edit the text there. So I'm going to call this one my floor plan. Click away, hold down the control key, double click, and this is 3/16. And by the way, 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch are really the norm for floor plans, but because we're using a different sheet size and we have a different, the dimensions are unique for our project, 3/16 and 3/32 are acceptable. But we're always trying our best to show drawings on a sheet of paper at an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch. So 3/16 it is. Zoom out. Well, I'll zoom back in because I want to bring this out a little bit like that. Tap the escape key. And then I go and look at my floor plan. And I'm just going to bring this down so I can see the text. There it is. And now I can bring this in a little bit like that. And I'm going to type M, enter, select the viewport, enter. and center it on my sheet as best I can, and then just move it up ever so slightly like that. Okay. And then when it comes time for the elevation, it just needs a title. So I'm going to come up here to open. I'm going to look for my presentation elevation, click open. I'm going to set the scale because if I go to my elevation tab here for the layout, I know it's at 3/16. So I go back to model space. I'll set this to 3/16. I'll turn on the add scale to annotative objects, and this is just to adjust the scale. Can click on it, so I'm all set. And this will be easy because I still have my presentation plans open. I'm going to go to model space. I know this is the title I want, so I'm just going to control copy, and then I'll go to my elevation, and I'm going to control paste. And that just saved me a bunch of time. I'll put it right here. You can click on it, you can go to properties, and you'll see if it doesn't match 3/16 annotative scale, then you set it. But that's already set. I'll come in over here. For the elevations, do not put a north arrow, so title only. And then I'm just going to grip it here, hover from this point, and just come down like this. Tap the escape key. Now this is one of my elevation views. And I'm going to go back to my presentation plan drawing, go straight into model space here, zoom out, and I want you to name the view accordingly. So let me annotate here real quick with you. And if you're looking at your building, the elevation, if you drew this elevation, this is going to be the south elevation because this is the south end if we assume north is facing up. So that's south. If you are showing us this elevation, that's going to be the north elevation. If you're going to show this elevation, that's going to be west. And then if you're elevating this side, that's going to be east. So in my case, I have this elevation, so it's going to be my west elevation. So I'll go back to my elevation drawing. Sorry, it didn't take me there. I was clicking too fast. There we go. Zoom in here and hold down the control key, double click, and this is going to be west elevation. And then click away from it. I'm going to take the line, stretch it. I already have it to the correct scale, so I don't need to change anything there. I can zoom out, and this presentation view is all set. If I go to my elevation drawing, there it is. So everything is good. So what I've accomplished here is adding the annotations to my drawings. There's no need to put dimensions here for now. Uh, showing dimensions on the floor plan is good enough. With elevations, we don't put too many dimensions. Sometimes we just show like the overall height of the building. But for what we're doing right now, this will be enough. I still need to go back. I still need to double check and make sure that I have finished all of my drawings, and then I'll be ready to print. So all set there, make sure to save, and you're ready to continue with your projects. Make sure to finish everything up, and then we'll get to printing. All right, thanks.